My wife's sudden baby fever led me to discover her 8-month affair, and I exposed her paternity fraud at our gender reveal party in front of both families. Hey Reddit, I'm still processing everything that happened, but I need to get this off my chest. This is probably going to be long, but I promise it's worth reading if you've ever wondered how far people will go to cover up their lies. My name is Daniel, I'm 31, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a pretty good marriage. My wife Alice and I have been together for 4 years, married for 2. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue in Austin where we both live. She was 27 then, working as a marketing coordinator for a local tech startup. I'm an electrical engineer for a renewable energy company. Alice was always the social butterfly in our relationship. She had this infectious laugh and could make friends with anyone. I'm more of the quiet type, prefer staying in with a good book or working on my motorcycle in the garage. We balanced each other out, or so I thought. The first red flag should have been how quickly she wanted to move in together. We'd been dating for 6 months when she suggested it, saying her lease was up and it would save money. I was hesitant because I'd been burned before by moving too fast, but Alice had this way of making everything sound logical and exciting at the same time. Our first year living together was mostly good. She kept the apartment spotless, always had dinner ready when I got home from work, and genuinely seemed interested in my day. We'd spend weekends exploring Austin, trying new restaurants, going to music festivals. Alice loved being seen out and about, always insisting we take photos for her Instagram. The marriage proposal came after we'd been together for 2 years. I wasn't necessarily ready, but Alice had been dropping hints for months. Her friends were all getting engaged, and she'd show me their ring photos with these pointed looks. Her mother, Grace, would call every Sunday and ask when I was going to make an honest woman out of her daughter. The pressure was subtle but constant. I proposed on New Year's Eve 2022 at a party her friend Sadie was throwing. Alice cried, her friends screamed, everyone applauded. Looking back, I realized the whole thing felt more like a performance than a moment between 2 people who loved each other. But I convinced myself that was just how women celebrated big moments. Planning the wedding became Alice's full-time obsession. She quit her marketing job, saying she needed to focus on making our special day perfect. I was making decent money, so I didn't mind supporting us for a few months. Those few months turned into 8. Every conversation revolved around venues, flowers, catering, guest lists. Alice would spend entire days on wedding forums and Pinterest, emerging with new, non-negotiable requirements that somehow always cost more money. The wedding itself was beautiful, I'll give her that. Alice looked stunning in her dress, and she'd managed to coordinate everything perfectly. Both our families were there. My parents, Mason and Michelle, flew in from Denver. Alice's parents, Grace and Thomas, along with her brother Mark and his wife Ashley, were all there beaming with pride. About 150 people total, which was larger than I'd wanted but exactly what Alice had envisioned. The honeymoon in Hawaii was nice, though Alice spent a lot of time on her phone posting photos and checking social media. When I mentioned it, she said she wanted to share our happiness with everyone who couldn't be there. Fair enough, I thought. The real issues started about 6 months after we got married. Alice still wasn't working, claiming she was transitioning into a new career path. She'd sleep until noon, spend afternoons at the gym or getting coffee with friends, then complain about being bored when I got home. I suggested she might be happier with a job, even part-time, but she said she was figuring out her passion. Money became tight. Alice's spending habits hadn't changed since her working days. She'd order expensive skincare products online, get her nails done weekly, buy new workout clothes constantly. When I brought up budgeting, she'd get defensive and say she deserved to feel good about herself. She had a point, but we were living paycheck to paycheck despite my decent salary. Around this time, Alice started going out more. Girls' nights became twice-weekly events. She joined a yoga studio and suddenly needed new outfits for every class. She started a book club that met at wine bars instead of anyone's home. There was always some social obligation that required her to dress up and be out until late. I didn't mind at first. I figured she was just adjusting to married life and needed outlets since she wasn't working. But the late nights became later, and her stories about where she'd been became vaguer. When I'd ask about her book club, she couldn't remember what they discussed. When I'd ask about yoga, she'd change the subject. The biggest change was in our physical relationship. Alice had never been particularly interested in sex, but after the wedding, it became almost non-existent. She was always too tired, too stressed, or had early morning plans. When we did have sex, she seemed distracted, going through the motions. I started to wonder if I'd done something wrong or if this was just what marriage was like. Then, about 4 months ago, something shifted dramatically. Alice woke up one Saturday morning in February and announced she wanted to start trying for a baby. This came completely out of nowhere. We'd talked about kids in general terms before getting married, both agreeing we wanted them someday. But Alice had always been adamant that someday wasn't any time soon. She wanted to establish her career first, travel more, enjoy being young and married. Suddenly, at 29, she was talking about her biological clock and how we shouldn't wait too long. The timing felt weird, but I figured maybe seeing her friends with babies had triggered something maternal. Her friend Sadie had just had a little girl, and Alice had been spending a lot of time helping out, bringing meals, babysitting. Maybe holding that baby had flipped a switch. I told her I was open to the idea but wanted to make sure we were financially ready. She immediately started researching prenatal vitamins, ovulation tracking, the whole 9 yards. Her sudden enthusiasm about something she'd been lukewarm about just months before should have been another red flag. But here's the thing that really bothered me. Alice wanted to start trying immediately, but she was still adamant about not working. How were we supposed to afford a baby when we were already struggling with just the two of us? Every time I brought this up, she'd get emotional and say I was crushing her dreams of motherhood. The pressure was intense. Alice downloaded fertility apps and started tracking her cycles obsessively. She'd present me with charts and graphs showing her most fertile days. Sex became completely mechanical and scheduled. If I wasn't in the mood during her window, she'd get upset and accuse me of not wanting children. This went on for 2 months. Alice became increasingly frustrated that she wasn't getting pregnant immediately. She started researching fertility treatments and talking about seeing specialists. I kept suggesting that maybe we should give it more time, but she was convinced something was wrong. Then, in early April, Alice announced she was pregnant. I should have been thrilled, but something felt off about the timing and her reaction. She was excited, but in a weird, almost relieved way rather than joyful. When I asked when she thought it happened, she was vague about dates. She said she wanted to wait until the second trimester to tell our families, which seemed reasonable. But other things started not adding up. Alice's morning sickness was inconsistent. Some days she'd be dramatically sick, other days she'd forget and eat things that supposedly made her nauseous. She started wearing loose clothing immediately, even though she couldn't possibly be showing yet. And she became secretive about her doctor's appointments, saying she wanted to handle the early stages herself. The biggest red flag was her phone behavior. Alice had always been attached to her phone, but now she was protective of it in a way that seemed paranoid. She'd take it to the bathroom, sleep with it under her pillow, and get jumpy if I was nearby when it buzzed. When I mentioned it casually, she said pregnancy hormones were making her anxious about everything. I started paying closer attention to her schedule. Her yoga classes seemed to happen at random times. Her book club was meeting more frequently. She started volunteering at an animal shelter, which was sweet, but the hours were irregular and she never seemed to come home with pet hair or stories about the animals. One evening in May, I decided to surprise her at yoga class with dinner from her favorite Thai place. The class was supposed to end at 7 p.m., so I showed up at 7:15. The instructor told me Alice hadn't been to class in over a month and had canceled her membership. When I asked Alice about it later, she said she'd switched to a different studio because the times worked better with her doctor appointments. That's when I started really investigating. I'm an engineer, so I approached it systematically. I began tracking her comings and goings, noting discrepancies in her stories. I checked our credit card statements and found charges at restaurants and hotels I'd never heard of. There were also Uber charges during times when she said she was walking to nearby appointments. The breakthrough came when I found a receipt in her purse while looking for gum. It was from a restaurant in Round Rock, about 30 miles from Austin, dated during a time when she said she was at a prenatal appointment downtown. Round Rock was oddly specific and far enough away to suggest she was meeting someone she didn't want to be seen with locally. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Foster. I know it sounds extreme, but I needed to know what was really going on before confronting Alice. Marcus was a former police detective who specialized in infidelity cases. He was expensive, but I figured the truth was worth it. Within a week, Marcus had answers. Alice was having an affair with someone named Kyle Lopez, a personal trainer at a gym in Round Rock. They'd been meeting at hotels, his apartment, and restaurants far enough from Austin to avoid being spotted by anyone we knew. The affair had been going on for about 8 months, starting just a few months after our wedding. Marcus provided photos, credit card records, and even recordings of Alice talking to Kyle on the phone. In one particularly damaging conversation, she told him she was handling the pregnancy situation, and that I was buying it completely. She also mentioned that once the baby was born, she could divorce me and get alimony and child support. The pregnancy was real, but the baby was Kyle's, not mine. Alice had gotten pregnant from the affair, then convinced me to start trying so she could pretend the baby was ours. The timing of her sudden baby fever made perfect sense now. She needed to establish a window where I could believably be the father. I was devastated, angry, and honestly impressed by how calculated it all was. Alice had planned this down to the week, manipulating my emotions and trust to cover up her betrayal. The woman I'd married and thought I knew was capable of a level of deception I couldn't have imagined. But I wasn't going to just confront her privately. Alice had involved both our families in this lie. She'd been accepting congratulations from my parents, letting her mother plan a baby shower, allowing everyone to get excited about a grandchild that wasn't even mine. The humiliation was designed to be public, so I decided the revelation should be public too. Alice wanted to do a gender reveal party. She'd been talking about it for weeks, saying it would be a fun way to share the news with everyone since we'd waited so long to announce the pregnancy. She wanted to invite both families, our close friends, basically everyone who mattered to us. The party was planned for Memorial Day weekend at her parents' house. I agreed enthusiastically, which probably should have raised suspicions given how unenthusiastic I'd been about most pregnancy-related activities. But Alice was too excited about her plan to notice my change in attitude. She spent weeks organizing the perfect party, ordering custom decorations, planning games, coordinating with her mother on food. The guest list was exactly what I'd hoped for: both sets of parents, Alice's brother Mark and his wife Ashley, my sister Daisy and her husband Mike, Sadie and several other close friends, plus Kyle. Yes, Kyle. Alice had the audacity to invite her affair partner to the gender reveal party for their baby, introducing him to everyone as her trainer friend, who'd become like family. I spent the weeks leading up to the party preparing my own surprise. I worked with a lawyer to get divorce papers drawn up. I organized all the evidence Marcus had gathered into a presentation. And I arranged for the real gender reveal. The party was beautiful. Alice's mother had decorated their backyard with pink and blue balloons, streamers, and a banner that said, "He or she, what will baby be?" There was a dessert table with pink and blue cupcakes, and Alice had ordered a special cake that would reveal the baby's gender when cut. About 30 people were there, everyone important to both of us. Alice was glowing, wearing a flowing dress that showed off her bump, accepting congratulations and gifts. She kept thanking everyone for being part of our journey to parenthood. Kyle stood off to the side, making small talk with my dad about fitness routines. When it came time for the big reveal, Alice gathered everyone around the cake table. She gave a little speech about how excited we were to expand our family and how much it meant to have everyone there to share this moment. She thanked me for being such a supportive husband and said she couldn't wait to see what kind of father I'd be. Then I asked if I could say something before we cut the cake. I thanked everyone for coming and said how much family meant to both Alice and me. I talked about trust, commitment, and the importance of honesty in relationships. I said that before we revealed the baby's gender, there was something else that needed to be revealed first. I pulled out a large envelope and began showing the photos Marcus had taken. Alice and Kyle at restaurants. Alice and Kyle going into hotel rooms. Alice's car parked outside Kyle's apartment building. The credit card statements showing charges during times when Alice said she was at doctor appointments. The reaction was immediate and intense. Alice's face went from glowing to ashen. Kyle tried to leave, but my brother-in-law Mike blocked his path. Alice's mother started crying, asking what was happening. My mother looked confused, then horrified as the pieces came together. Alice tried to deny it at first, claiming the photos were manipulated, that it wasn't what it looked like. But I had the phone recordings too, including the one where she explicitly talked about passing off Kyle's baby as mine. Her own voice, recorded just days earlier, admitting the entire deception. The gender reveal became a confession. In front of both our families and all our friends, Alice finally admitted the affair and that the baby wasn't mine. Kyle confirmed it when pressed, saying Alice had told him I was abusive and that they were in love. That was news to Alice, who immediately denied saying any such thing about me. What followed was chaos. Alice's father, Thomas, asked Kyle to leave immediately. My parents were asking if I was okay, if I'd known how long this had been going on. Alice was crying and trying to explain herself to anyone who would listen. Her mother was oscillating between comforting Alice and expressing outrage at her behavior. Sadie, who had helped plan the party, was particularly angry. She felt used, realizing she'd been an unwitting accomplice in Alice's deception. Mark, Alice's brother, was surprisingly supportive of me, saying he'd suspected something was off but hadn't wanted to interfere. The party ended with Alice and Kyle leaving together, though from what I overheard, their relationship was already falling apart under the pressure of public exposure. The families stayed to help clean up and process what had happened. Both sets of parents were supportive of me and ashamed of Alice's actions. In the weeks that followed, I learned more about how deep the deception had gone. Alice had been lying to Kyle too, telling him I was controlling and that she was planning to leave me anyway. She'd been playing us both, though she'd clearly underestimated how much evidence I'd gather before confronting her. The divorce proceedings started immediately. With the evidence of adultery and fraud, Alice had no leverage for alimony or shared assets. She tried to claim emotional distress and that I'd humiliated her publicly, but her lawyer advised her to settle quietly given the strength of my case. Kyle disappeared from the picture pretty quickly once he realized Alice had been lying to him too. He'd thought he was helping her escape an unhappy marriage, not enabling her to commit paternity fraud. Last I heard, Alice was living with her parents and working part-time at a department store, preparing to be a single mother. The baby was born in September, a healthy boy that looks nothing like me. Alice named him Austin, which felt like a final insult since that's where we met and fell in love, or where I fell in love and she began her long con. I don't feel bad about how I handled the revelation. Alice had planned to humiliate me for years, letting me believe I was a father while she knew the truth. She would have taken half my assets in a divorce and garnished my wages for child support, all while raising another man's child. The public exposure felt like appropriate justice for such a public deception. My family has been incredibly supportive throughout everything. My parents, who had genuinely grown to love Alice, were heartbroken but made it clear they stood by me. My sister Daisy said she'd never trusted Alice completely, that something had always felt performed about her affection for me. Alice's family has been more complicated. Her parents, Grace and Thomas, reached out to apologize for their daughter's behavior. Her mother sent a long letter saying she was ashamed and that they'd raised Alice better than that. Mark, her brother, actually maintained a friendship with me, saying blood doesn't excuse betrayal. Looking back, I can see the signs were always there. Alice's need for constant validation, her comfort with lying about small things, her view of relationships as performances rather than partnerships. She married me because I was stable and could provide the lifestyle she wanted, not because she loved me. The affair with Kyle was probably about excitement and validation, things she felt were missing from our marriage. I'm doing better now, 6 months later. I moved to a smaller apartment in a different part of Austin, closer to work. I've been going to therapy to process everything and figure out why I ignored so many red flags. I'm not ready to date yet, but I'm working on trusting my instincts better and recognizing manipulative behavior. The hardest part isn't even the betrayal, though that was devastating. It's realizing that nearly 4 years of my life were based on lies. The woman I thought I married probably never existed. Alice was always acting, always calculating, always working toward her own benefit regardless of who got hurt. But I'm grateful I found out when I did, before spending years raising another man's child or wasting more time in a marriage that was built on deception. The gender reveal party might have been dramatic, but it saved me from a lifetime of being taken advantage of. To anyone reading this who recognizes similar patterns in their own relationship, trust your instincts. If something feels off, investigate. Don't make excuses for behavior that doesn't make sense. And don't be afraid to ask hard questions, even if you're not sure you want to know the answers. The truth might hurt, but it's better than living a lie. Update. For those asking about legal consequences, Alice did face some financial penalties in the divorce settlement for attempted fraud, though criminal charges weren't pursued. The evidence we gathered made the divorce straightforward from a legal standpoint. Kyle tried to contact me once to apologize, but I wasn't interested in his perspective on the situation. I've gotten a lot of messages asking if I regret the public revelation. The short answer is no. Alice had involved all these people in her lie, accepting their congratulations and gifts based on deception. They deserved to know the truth, and I deserved to have my side of the story heard. Private confrontations would have allowed Alice to control the narrative and potentially manipulate others' perceptions of what happened. The therapy has been helpful in understanding how I ignored warning signs and why I was susceptible to Alice's manipulation. I'm learning to trust my gut instincts more and not dismiss concerns just because someone I care about provides plausible explanations. It's amazing how much gaslighting can make you doubt your own perceptions. Thanks to everyone who reached out with support. It means a lot to know that strangers on the internet can show more empathy than someone who promised to love and honor me did for years.